Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Woke by Accident podcast. I am your host, Jen, and today we have a special guest, Al Peterson, or AKA Mr. Al Pete, who is a hip hop musician, podcaster, journalist, and founder of the Mr. Peterson's Neighborhood slash the MPN Network, fellow member of the Content Creators of Color Collective. He's agreed to join me today to discuss today's topic. Welcome to the show, Al.
Thank you for having me. How you feeling, ma'am? How you feeling?
Hey, it's Friday. Feel good.
Indeed, indeed.
Yes, and so we're both fans of the Donald Glover production Atlanta, and season three, episode one hit many of the audiences hard with the dramatization inspired by the heartbreaking story of the Hart family murders and the story of Lake Lanier. And so I reached out to Al to see if he'd be willing to dive get into those today. And so the story about the Hart family murder suicide, we just had the anniversary of their unfortunate death March 26th. So it happened back on March 26th of 2018 in Mendocino County in California. Jennifer Hart and her wife, Sarah Hart, murdered their six adopted children. And they were Sierra, who was 12, Abigail, who was 14, Jeremiah, who was 14, Devontae, who was 15, Hannah, 16, and Marquez, who was 19. They were all killed when Jennifer Hart drove the family sports utility vehicle off a cliff. And Jennifer Hart was in the driver's seat, Sarah in the passenger seat. And so after the accident and investigation, they determined that this was not an accident, it was intentional. After review and investigation, the experts determined that, let's see, they had Jennifer's blood alcohol content was over the legal limit at the time of the crash, and they had actually drugged the children. They had doped them with Benadryl, and they had did searches on crashes and things of that nature. So they determined that this was not an accident and this was intentional. This is a very sad case, and so wanted to look into this deeper. There have been some documentaries made about it, and they use the story for inspiration for this episode one of season three of Atlanta. And so we'll stop there and kind of analyze some things before we go into the other piece. There's another true story that is incorporated into the episode. We hear so many stories about foster children being abused in similar cases to the Harts, where there's multiple children in the home. Why do you think there's not more done to remove kids in these types of scenarios?
The only thing I could think of is funding. I think the whole money system surrounding this issue. I think to me, I feel like that's the only, not the only reason, but that's like the primary reason.
And
And
then, another thought, I have a lot of social work friends, and you hear like they have these, you see the big file stacks that they have, and they're swamped and they get lost in the stacks of cases and they're overwhelmed and overworked. Do you think that may be a factor?
now I haven't heard that aspect of it, but I can see that being the case too.
Yeah.
I can see that being the case too. But I mean, overall, I just feel like it's just a money factor. I'm like, people feel like they can get a check and just have raise these kids at the minimum. You know what I'm saying? Not understanding the welfare that you put in raising a kid, or even just being involved in somebody else's life. I don't think people they don't take that into consideration. But that check that they get, they reel up on that. They're like, we're gonna make this thing look good and make it look beautiful, so we want this money.
That's horrible. I mean, they get support, food stamps, and all of that, and then to hear of cases of them starving kids and not giving them the minimum, like very the least of food possible. Like, why do they do that? Like, I don't understand. Especially if they're
Yeah.
getting food stamps in addition to, usually the people work or something too. So,
It's almost like they getting, I'm not fond of like how much they get, but it's definitely salary. It's like they getting salary numbers. So when they getting these kids, they're getting a check, and it can be up to someone's salary. So it's not like they don't have too much of the money to be able to take care of these kids. They're
right.
getting like an enormous amount. And in this case right here, from what I was studying, it looked like they got money from one state, but they were in like other states. So they could have got money from them, you know what I'm saying, from them other states as
Mm,
well. Who knows? It's it's crazy. So it
that's
was a
true.
it was a money, it like it was just a money thing. And they was like, well, I'm gonna get this money. I don't care who I hurt and who I, mistreat. But it looked like that's what the case is.
Right. And from the case of the Hearts, in the details of the documentary, they were living double lives. One very public social media presence where there's all these pictures of the kids and they're at the farmer's market and it looks like they're so happy and they got signs and they're wearing hats and little costumes, and then there's this other life where there's abuse and neglect, and there's cases of the kids, running to the neighbors for food, being, hungry. And it's like, how did they, living this whole concept of the double life? You know what I mean? What's your thought on that?
Uh,
Why be so public with it if you were going to be doing these things behind closed doors?
Listen, that's everybody's life, right? Well, I ain't gonna say everybody's life because that's totally not my life. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I do, I do keep stuff private. You know what I'm saying? Because I am a very public person, so
Yeah.
I keep a lot of things that are personal private because I just want to be able to enjoy it in my own privacy. But, um, you know, social media, man, social media is like that. It's like that gateway drug, and it's easy for you to develop this facade, and make it seem like it's one thing. Because for the most part, when people post on social media, they're thinking, okay, well, everything's fine. We kind of go off the judgment of what we see on their platforms. So it's easy to make it look good, but
That's true.
it's easy to make it look good. But when you cut off the social media cameras, it's a different story. And they got to
That's
keep that
true.
image up.
And
They got to keep that image
that's
up because
true.
if they don't keep that image up, it's one slight move is gonna be like, what they doing? They taking care of them kids. Them kids don't look like they happy. On top of the fact of
Hmm.
they're white and then the kids were black. Of course, that's the factor right there too.
Right. They stand out. And so I think it was important to make sure that they made it look like everything was okay.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
That might be the one case too. That might be the case that they were white, and I mean, you got to think about it. Both of they're white. The parents are white. Um, Same sex relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Got six black kids. That's already a red flag right there. Like I mean, I don't care how you look at it. It's a red flag for sure.
Right, right. And then, so this story we just mentioned that was inspired by the episode, what was your thoughts of how they incorporated the true story of the Hearts and made it into the fictional story we saw on Atlanta, episode one? They, changed it up a bit and, gave us a different ending, which I was actually happy with the ending they gave us on the show for the children. But what was your opinion of how they played it out?
Okay, so just to make it clear, I had no clue at all that this was a true story. Like this was based off a true story. I didn't even
Mm-hmm.
know. But I had a homegirl. I actually share a podcast with her, but she sent me the link and I just read up on it, and I was like, my God. But I
Mm-hmm.
still don't understand, like, because remember the last episode, which was what episode is it four? Not the one, the episode four
Mm-hmm.
where there was the big payback.
Yes.
So I'm trying to figure out what's Donald Glover's like direction for having these type of episodes. Like, is it all about awareness or what? You know what I'm saying? Or to me, I look at it as an awareness type of drive because I'm like, for one, I didn't know, and like you said, the happy ending was good, but I don't know, man. But I mean, I, I think he did a. See, I don't know. I don't know if he did a good job because I mean, I just don't know the backgrounds. I mean, I don't know like what is his motive or whatever. But if it's, I don't know what's the bigger picture. Does that make sense?
Right. I mean, because I was like, where are the characters of the show? You know what I mean? So I was
Yeah,
just like, and it's like, okay, is this a flashback? Because, in the prior seasons, we had like a flashback where it was like them as kids, but like, hey, this is not that. This is something different. But, okay, he's telling a story by giving us these characters. He wants us to see these characters for a reason. It's how I'm processing it. And so, it's obviously very intentional, the placement of these extra characters outside of the Atlanta cast, and he wants to tell this story to us for a reason.
yeah,
This
yeah,
story of, this couple living this double life who, try to take these kids out thinking that that would be the better option. They had like money problems or something like that. They were going to skip town, and they actually thought that killing the entire family, including these defenseless children, would be a better option than for them to go back into the system. In their mind, that was a better option, which is just bizarre. And so, but they're gonna save the dog. You know what I mean? But they're gonna save the dog though, and it's just like, what?
yeah. That was crazy. See, now we talking about it. I didn't think about it like that because they definitely like let the
And the
dog
treatment
go.
of the dog. They
The
actually
treatment of
cooked
the
his
dog.
food. Their food was not prepared, in the right manner. And like they treated the dog in a different way than they treated the kids. It's just like,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was crazy. I'm even with yeah, the different behaviors that was going on in that episode.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's definitely something to pay attention to. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I think those are like hitting, I guess hitting agendas, so to say. But yeah, just I'm sitting here thinking that about
Yes.
the dog situation. That was crazy. That was so crazy.
It was. And then he flipped it at the end where the dog ended up back in the car with them, and he got out and got the other kids out. So, in the true story, all of the kids perish, and in the fictional version that Donald Glover gives us, the kids get away and the dog doesn't make it, but that wasn't their intention,
Right,
the mothers. So,
right,
and it's just like, it's just sad that that would be that's their great plan. You have these children's lives in your hands, with given by the state,
yeah,
and this is, the responsibility level. It just makes me, just, oh, it just grinds my gears that people would treat children that way. You know what I mean? If
right.
you don't want to be a parent anymore, you don't want to do this, it's so many people who don't have children or want to be a parent, and for you to do this is just unacceptable and just really maddening. It really
Yeah. I
is.
have a question though before we move on, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Um, so the relationship with the actual mom, like, what were your
Oh,
thoughts on
yes.
that part? Like how that led up, and then how
Oh,
that
man.
like that process was very interesting to me too. Like I just felt like, most parents, well, the black parent be like, look, you need to fly straight and quit acting up. Or, because life is not as good as you think it is with these white folks. I mean, that's kind of like the initial thought that I had. But it was very interesting to see how, the mother and the son relationship was. And even when he came back to the house, it was like, you know, I still got you. You know what I'm saying? I hope you learned your lesson, but you know what I'm saying? It was weird.
I was appalled. I don't know, call me sheltered or what have you, but I was appalled at the whole situation from the black mother standpoint. Like, okay, you're just not gonna check on him or go get him or see where he ended up at all, you know. And so, for people who are not aware, there is a, you know, loop in the story
Yeah.
where the fictional one of the fictional kids is sent into the foster care, I guess voluntarily, for acting up in school, you know. And so the come to find out, the teacher sends the state authorities or DFS to the home to check into matters after seeing how the mother responded coming up to the school with the grandfather. And the mother thinks that the son called them on her. So, oh, you can just go with him.
Right,
Well,
right,
go
right,
ahead on then. Go ahead on
right.
then. And it's just like, okay, this is just a scaring tactic. You know, she's not seriously going to, you know, really send her child off. And she really did in this episode. She did send them
Yeah.
off. And so, having a discussion with some other folks about this, they, you know, said their mother probably would do something similar. I'm like, not my mother, you know. So they
You'd be
called me
surprised.
shelter, but I was appalled at that whole thing. She took it way too far. I felt.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But yeah, I just think it was interesting how that flowed in into like the actual story. So yeah, it's weird.
But I mean, I guess it served the purpose of, you know, like you said, that message of you will see what happens with, you know, getting involved with white people in this
Right,
way. You
right,
know, it can result to you being killed, and
right,
that ultimately could have been his fate. You know, could have been
right.
his fate. So that was the message he was trying to drive home. But that was some message, in some way to depict that with this mother that was like, well, go ahead on then, you know.
Yeah.
But way too far. I said, gee whiz.
Yeah. Pretty,
That
pretty.
was a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot. Very. It was. It was a lot,
That,
especially for that. Especially for that being the first episode of Atlanta. Like we've waited this long time for Atlanta to come back,
it
and
was.
then he come back and just be like, boom, this is what we finna start this thing off with. So,
But
it
yeah,
was. Yeah.
yeah. And so he wove another little piece of Atlanta, Georgia history in there with the story behind Lake Lanier, which is a man made lake. And there's a story that this lake is haunted. And so, let me find. Okay, so prior, let's see. Built in 1957 by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Lake Lanier is a man made lake that was created to manage navigation and flood control from the Chattahoochee River and supply water for residents of the city, for the residents of the city of Atlanta. But prior to it was 1950. It was a town of Oscarville that occupied a certain part of the location of this actual lake. And so it was a small community and the site of a 1912 lynching, actually. And it resulted in the displacement of 1,100 black people from Forsyth County. And so this entire town is this lake. And so that is why people feel or still feel that the lake is haunted because there's an entire town underneath the water. And so there's characters that reference the lake and the story. What is your thoughts about Lake Lanier and it being haunted? Oh,
Okay. I don't. Oh man. I mean, they say it's a whole town up under that water, correct?
right.
It's haunted.
Okay, okay. I mean, because it's like that's a lot of souls, and like the guy,
A lot.
yeah,
Like
totally.
a whole town, like a whole town, and it just keywords that stick out to me. This is maybe this might be my woke moment right here. Like uh the 1912 lynching, you know what I'm saying? 1950s. I mean, man-made town. It's a town. Like these words and these phrases are like triggering me, like to think there's some form of eerie moments going on in there. You know what I'm saying? I can't
Yeah.
think nothing else. And then I think I read something where they were saying like, you know, they was talking about all these drownings. And then they say like Usher's kid
Mm.
was one of those drownings. Like
Yes, so many children have died in that lake. So it's yeah.
it's very unfortunate, but it makes you go, hmm, it makes you think like, does this add to the trivial of it being haunted? You know what I'm saying? And then it's kids too. And then when you have somebody like Donald Glover like tying all this in, it's like it makes the thought of the message more deeper. Like, what is he like? He's really bringing awareness like that. Like wow, let me go hug my kids or something. I don't know, but it's just
Yeah.
yeah, it's just
And that was a big tie in because the Hart story was not even in Georgia. That was in California. So, he pushed that, he pushed those together creatively. But
yeah, he did. I mean, I can see Donald Glover going to like going the Jordan Peele direction, maybe, or you know what I'm saying, like on movies or something, or even with Atlanta being so dark right now. Because I think right now Atlanta is like Atlanta always had like this dark aspect to it, but this season here for sure is like very dark, very deep, very
yeah.
would I say introspective? Not even well, yeah, it make you like take your thoughts and be like, let me think about this a little bit deeper. He makes you think on these things. And
Hmm.
it because I know for me, I'm just like I just don't understand what's going on. Like, you know, like maybe at the last episode of this season, we'll understand like what his reasons for doing all this is. Maybe it all come together on one episode. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I can see
But
that.
I mean, it would be clever if that happened, but for right now, I ain't gonna lie. I am. It's a very confusing, but very intriguing. It's extremely intriguing. Like I'm
Because
just
he
like,
did use an actor from the beginning of episode one. That boat scene, one of those guys was in the other episode. Did you? Okay, I know a lot of people were
yes,
talking
I
about
know.
that.
Yes, I caught that. I caught that. And that's
Yeah.
why. That's so me. I'm like I think a lot. Sometimes I think
Hmm.
to a fault. So it's not bothering me that it's like confusing and how these things all tie in. But at the same time, too, it's like I'm seeing like little small little things, and I'm like, this was in episode one. They referenced this in episode two. They tie in a lake, you know what I'm saying, haunted with kids. Then you talk about it. It just all this stuff ties in so like tremendously, and it made me excited. But I'm just like, let me just chill for a moment. I really want to know what his goal is on this. You know what I'm saying? Because he's a lot of people don't know about this stuff. Like I told you, I didn't know anything about those suicides and the ladies mistreating those kids. Knew nothing about it.
Yeah.
But this is
Hmm.
definitely waking like it's like damn, this really happened. Like I
Yeah, I
it
I missed that story too. I remember seeing the images of that little boy with their little derby hat
yeah.
and whatever protest that was hugging the officer, and I'm like, "Oh my god, he died." I did not know that he was a part of that family. I want to say kind of remember them driving off the cliff, but I didn't know that he was one of those kids. I remember him in that picture because that picture was all over the internet.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
And it was crazy because when I saw that picture, like it was like I briefly remembered where that picture came from, but I didn't. Well, I remember seeing the picture online, but I
yeah,
didn't know what it was tied into. But it was just one of those familiar. It was very a familiar picture, like. you saw it in Crossing, but then when you see it again, you're like, I saw this somewhere. And then it just makes like him tying it into all these things. It's like, so it's
Yeah, it's like he recreated the whole thing with the head and the. I was like, oh my god, to actually see the actual picture was like, I've seen this. Oh my gosh.
right,
And this
right,
poor kid was being abused that whole time. Like, horrible.
right, right. It's yeah, it's crazy to me. And I'm, from a creative standpoint, you know, whatever he's doing and whatever his mission is, he's doing an absolute great job making us aware of what's going on or creating this narrative for us to think a little bit bigger. But
Yes.
yeah, it's he's doing an absolutely great job on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what a creative way to kind of bring these issues to the forefront and have people have these conversations, and do it in a creative way, and yet to make people go look up a real story so that they can find out, and then they can yeah, I think that's pretty cool that he did it like that.
So let me ask this question if you don't mind. So
Yeah.
the big payback, uh
Right.
where was that based out of? Was that based out of Atlanta?
I feel like it was Atlanta.
Okay, so we got that. And then we got the Lake Lanier. That's basically,
Right.
Atlanta.
Yeah.
So it's almost like he's tying in these stories, you know what I'm saying, while they're in Paris. I
And
don't
that's like
know.
future.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's going like future with that one, right? So, of like how it would be, a good what if, you know. So
Man,
that was kind of deep. I wasn't expecting that.
that's a hell of a what if though. Jesus Christ.
I was not expecting that story. I was like, okay, is this about the coffee shop thing? Like, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm
So
just trying to tie all that stuff in. I mean, my brain is going as we talk now, but I'm like, I don't know how he's tying it in, but I mean, that story, unfortunately, the heart scenario is very unfortunate. The Lake
it
Lanier,
is. It really
very
is.
unfortunate, and it's like, wow, it's crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, rest in peace to those children, and even those women who made a really poor choice. And yeah,
Oh wow,
because they're just right up on the anniversary of that incident.
yeah. So I'm reading something that you sent me right real quick, and it says that Sarah, made Google searches before the crash about Benadryl, the
Mm-hmm.
lethal part about it, right? And then she also searches no kill shelters for dogs. Wow,
Right. So that was their
wow,
thought process of like how to save the animal, but
kill the kids. Wow.
right. But I guess she wanted to drug them as to soften the. Is that even? Is that a way to soften the experience? It's just really kind of sad that they thought that those decisions and choices were the correct ones because they were
Right,
not. Yeah.
right. Wow, 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 wow.
And the other abuse that they, inflicted on the children, which is well documented, and they, were just able to continue on with these children for, many years,
Right,
many
right.
years.
Woo.
So, what is your takeaway from all of this as we wrap it up here?
Oh man, I'm just going to sit back and wait for the interview that Donald Glover gives, speaking about this particular episode. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I would like to hear about the other episodes too. Very intrigued and want to know about them, but this particular one, and because like I'm thinking deep, man. I think so deep into these things. I'm like, he probably wanted to like he probably thought of this episode when he first started writing Atlanta back in, well, I mean, because this happened in what, 2018, and
Yeah.
Atlanta started in like I think 17ish or whatever. So I'm sure he wanted to include it some kind of way. So he's been sitting on this episode for a minute, I would think, for it to be, for it to come at the right time. So I just think my takeaway is that I'm just ready for that interview. I'm ready for him to break it down, like what his thought process was when he did this, because we're very aware. Like, for us to be able to come back
Yeah.
to something and be like, oh, this really, really happened. Like, oh, like it wasn't like a fictional thing that, I mean, he made it a fictional aspect of it, but for it to be tied to like a really, really horrific
Right. Like they
story.
some kids actually experienced that. Right. So yeah. It was inspired by true things.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think that's my takeaway, man. I think my takeaway for right now is just I want to watch down the interview talking about this show, and I guess we just need to be very aware of our surroundings, man, and the people that we deal with. Wow.
We do. If we see something that don't look right, say something. Part of what went on with what the kids experienced is that the neighbors that they ran to for help in getting food and such, they did give them bread or what have you, but they kind of sat on it for a while before they really called it into the police. And that could have saved their life had they been more diligent in doing something about it. We're not going to put it all on them, but if you see something that don't seem right, say something about it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Because when they said the kid jumped out of
A window from
like a
like
window.
really high up.
Wow.
And yeah, and then she tried to like make him apologize and say it didn't really happen, and then they ended up coming back like it really did happen. You know what I mean? And we really are starving. So
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
it's just really sad.
Yeah, people. If you see something wrong, man, please report it. Especially, well, with anything, but in this case,
Yeah,
the kids for sure.
with kids, right? And
Yeah.
there's ways to do it. Discreetly or anonymous or what have you, if that's your concern.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, children are our future, and so I just really, this episode just really hit me with those kids. I knew I wanted to do something and share more and have a conversation about this. So I appreciate you doing that, Al.
Nah, thank you for having me on here. It was a good conversation. Of course, this conversation can go deeper and deeper, but I think we definitely hit the surface of it, and just it was good to have a conversation about it for sure.
It is, and so we may have to get into some reviews for later, since I know that you're
Absolutely.
into that. Okay, that's what's
Absolutely.
up. All right. Well, we'll have the links for Al's shows. There's a whole network, guys. Not just one show, but there's a whole network. You want to talk
Indeed.
about that just for a bit? Tell them
Yeah,
about the network.
yeah, the NPN network. We have the podcast network, neighborhood podcast network, where it's a couple of shows on there that's dope. I have a couple on there, but some really cool stuff, man. Flowers for the Culture, the Groove Suite, Clear Visions, Sports Desk, all that stuff, man. So go check it out, npn-llc.com. And yeah, some good podcasts on there, good content, and all that stuff. So
Okay, cool. We'll have the links posted. So, yeah, thanks to Al for stopping through, and thanks, guys, for listening.
indeed.
All right.